The week of 23rd to 29th March, aviation history tells a story of progress, tragedy, and change. Let's take a look. 1931. Swiss Air is formed by the merger of Ad Astra Air and Belair. And Boeing Air Transport, National Air Transport, Varney Airlines, and Pacific Air Transport combine as United Airlines, providing coast-to-coast passenger service and mail service. It takes 27 hours to fly the route, one way. Today, United flies over 1,000 aircraft, one of the world's largest airlines. 1936. Britain's Imperial Airways begins scheduled flights between Hong Kong and Malaysia with a de Havilland 86. 1960. A jet airliner exceeds Mach 1 for the first time when a modified DC-8 hits 667 miles per hour in a shallow dive. And first flight of the Tupolev 124, with Aeroflot the launch customer. 1961. Aerofreak is formed based in the Ivory Coast. 1970. Although Concorde first flew the previous year, its first true supersonic flight takes place. 1975. First flight of the de Havilland Canada-7 with Rocky Mountain Airways the launch customer. 1981. Piedmont Airlines announces an order for 8 more Boeing 737s with options for 20 more to begin delivery in 1982. The order will make their 737 fleet the largest in the world. 1989. Austrian Airlines begins international flights for the first time in almost 2 decades on a flight from Vienna to New York on an Airbus 310. 1990. The Boeing 737 becomes the world's best-selling jetliner when United Airlines accepts delivery of the 1,832nd Boeing 737. 1992. First flight of the Saab 2000 with Crossair the first operator. 1993. The first woman Concorde pilot makes her inaugural flight as first officer of the daily supersonic London-New York route. British-born Barbara Harmer is one of only 17 co-pilots in the British Airways Concorde fleet. 1996. Charter airline Pace Airlines is founded. 2026. American Airlines launches the only non-stop service from Miami to Milan with the Boeing 787. 1931. The crash of Trans World Airlines Flight 599 in Kansas, a Fokker 10, while en route to Los Angeles, resulted in the deaths of 8 people and led to the first grounding of an aircraft type due to structural wing failure. 1955. Pan Am Flight 845-26, a Boeing 377, ditches into the Pacific Ocean off the Oregon coast, killing 4 of the 23 on board. 1958. A Braniff Airlines Douglas DC-7, Flight 971, departs Miami and tries to return to the airport after a fire on the number 3 engine, but did not make it. Of the 24 on board, 9 perish in a marsh. 1961. Czechoslovak Airlines Flight 511 and Ilyushin 18 crashed in Grafenberg, West Germany. All 52 people on board were killed after the aircraft broke up mid-flight for unknown reasons. 1962. A Cubana Ilyushin 14 crashes into the sea about a mile from Santiago, Cuba, killing all 22 aboard. 1968. Aer Lingus Flight 712, a Vickers Viscount 803, crashes off the Irish coast. All 61 on board perish. 1977. In the Tenerife airport disaster, KLM Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736, both Boeing 747s, collide in Los Rodeos Airport on the island of Tenerife. The crash occurred in dense fog after a series of miscommunications, congestion, radio interference, and pilot error. The disaster led to major changes in international aviation procedures, including improvements in standard phraseology, cockpit communication, and air traffic control protocols to prevent similar tragedies. 558 of the 644 people on board both aircraft are killed in the worst accident in the history of commercial aviation. 1978. Burma Airways, a Fokker 27, crashes immediately after takeoff from Okaraba, Burma, killing all 48 on board. 1979. Quebec Air Flight 255, a Fairchild 27 from Quebec to Montreal, crashes after an explosion in an engine, killing 17 of the 24 on board. 1981. Garuda Indonesian Flight 206, a DC-9 scheduled from Jakarta to Palembang, is hijacked by Commando Jihad. The captain is killed in the crossfire, along with 3 of the 5 hijackers after landing in Bangkok. All others survive when the aircraft was stormed by commandos. 1991. An Aeroflot Antonov 24 overruns the runway while landing at Navoy from Tashkent and catches fire, killing 34 of the 63 aboard. And Singapore Airlines Flight 117, an Airbus 310, is hijacked by Pakistani militants en route to Singapore. Upon landing, it is stormed by Singapore Special Operations Forces. All of the hijackers are killed in the operation, with no fatalities amongst the passengers and crew. 1994. Aeroflot Flight 593. An Airbus 310 from Moscow to Hong Kong crashes after the captain allows his children into the cockpit during cruise. One of the children unintentionally applies pressure to the controls, which partially disengages the autopilot and causes the aircraft to gradually bank and descend. As the flight was at night, by the time the crew recognized the situation, the aircraft is in an unrecoverable descent and strikes terrain in Siberia, killing all 75 people on board. 2005. West Caribbean Airways Flight 9955, A-Let 410, crashes a few hundred feet from the end of the runway after departure from Providencia in Colombia, killing 9 of the 14 aboard. 2009. FedEx Flight 80, an MD-11 flying from Guangzhou crashes at Tokyo Airport. Both the captain and the co-pilot are killed. 2012. Aboard JetBlue Airways Flight 191, an Airbus 320 flying from New York to Las Vegas, the co-pilot locks Captain Clayton Osborne out of the cockpit after Osborne begins acting erratically. Passengers subdue Osborne, and the airliner diverts to Amarillo, where Osborne is arrested. 1979. Qantas retires its last Boeing 707 and becomes the world's first airline with a fleet of exclusively Boeing 747s. 1981. British Airways makes its last Vickers VC-10 flight. It was flown as a ceremonial service and marked the end of VC-10 operations with British Airways. The aircraft type had been a long-range jet workhorse for the airline, particularly on routes to Africa and the Middle East. And Air France flies the airline's last Sud Aviation Caravelle service from Amsterdam to Paris. 1984. British Airways inaugurates a Concorde service from London to Miami twice weekly. The service operates through Washington Dulles, necessitating a 50-minute stopover. 2005. Chicago Express Airlines, also known as ATA Connection, ceases operations. 2007. The last Airbus 300 leaves the Airbus assembly line. 2010. Scottish airline Highland Airways also ceases operations.